The next difference that I want to discuss is the R sound, which follows a consonant sound. So the first one that I discussed is the final R. So the final R is not pronounced in British English. And the second one is somewhat similar to the first one because they're both about R sounds. All right. So this one is particularly about the R sound, which follows a consonant sound. Let's take these two words for example. Just one word, court. So as you notice, the R sound follows a consonant sound, or it is followed by a consonant sound. It depends on which one you prefer. Some people say that the R sound is followed by a T sound. Other people would say that the T sound is followed by an R sound, or the R sound follows a T sound. It depends on how you understand things. But for this one, let's just say that the R sound follows a T sound. All right. So in British English, if the R sound follows a T sound, then the R sound is not pronounced. So in American English, this word is pronounced court, but in British English, it is court. So in British English, these two words have the same pronunciation, court. In American English, this word is pronounced court, and this one is cot. Court and cot. As you can hear, the vowel sounds used are not the same in American English, but in British English, there are two big differences between the pronunciation of these two words. So in British English, the vowel sound used here for the word court is O, and it's the same for this one. It's O, court, and court. So you have to prolong the vowel sound to replace the missing R sound in British English, and that's the difference. Next one. Let's examine the word sort. So in American English, you say sort. In British English, you say sort. So these two words have the same pronunciation in British English, salt and salt. In American English, they're not the same. Sort and salt. That's how it is. Next one. Right. So this one, the R sound is followed by a T sound, so you say hot in British English and heart in American English. Let's pronounce it again. Court. So court for British, caught, or caught. Court for American, court for British. Sort for American, sort for British. This one is heart. And for American English, for British, it's heart. The R sound is not pronounced again. Next one. Heard for American and heard for British. Heard for British. The R sound is missing, or it is not pronounced in British English. Next one. Beard. So beard for American English and beard for British English. Beard and beard for British. Beard for American, beard for British. Next one. This one's funny to me. So for American English, you say farther, farther. But for British, you say father, father. And these two words sound almost exactly the same in British English. Or sometimes they're exactly the same. They're pronounced exactly the same in British English. Well, technically, they should sound exactly the same in British English. So Americans would say farther, British people would say father, father. And that is the exact same pronunciation of this word in British English. Father, father. The same pronunciation. But in American English, these two words don't have the same pronunciation. So farther and father, farther, father. We already discussed the final R, right? We already discussed the final R in the previous video. So Americans would say father, father. British people would say father, father. The R sound is not pronounced. The final R is not pronounced. The last one, board. For Americans, it's board. For British, it's board. Board and board. So that's it. So that's the second difference. And the first and second differences, I would say, are the biggest differences, because you will hear them often. You'll hear them very often. So the first one is the final R, which is not pronounced in British English. And the second one is the R sound, which follows a consonant sound. And that kind of R is also not pronounced in British English. However, there's no however. In American English, the R sound has the same pronunciation wherever it is. Whether it's at the beginning of a word, the end of a word, or at the middle of a word, it has the same pronunciation always. It always has the same pronunciation. In British English, its pronunciation would change depending on where it is. There's also this group of speakers in England. Not sure if it's in England or I think it's in England. And the initial R sounds like a W, or the R sound sounds like a W. So for example, the word red, and it sounds, when they say red, they're saying wed. So another example would be the name Harry. So instead of saying hey Harry, they would say hey Howie. Or Harry has a red cap. Harry has a red cap. They would say something like Howie has a red cap. That's how they pronounce the R sound. But don't worry about that. That's a small group. I'm telling you this so that you will be aware of it. So if you encounter a person from that group, then you will not be confused. But aside from that, aside from that, the initial R is the same in all dialects of the English language, whether it's Australian, American, Canadian, British, or Kiwi, or South African. They have the same pronunciation of the initial R. So that's the word red has the initial R, and the word red has the same the initial R has the same pronunciation in all English-speaking countries, except for the small group that I told you about a while ago. So Americans say red, British people say red, Australians say red, Canadians red, and all of the other English speakers say red. However, if the R sound is at the end of a word, if it's at the end of a word, if it's the final R, then it is not pronounced in British English and Australian English. Yeah, I'm not very much familiar with all the dialects of Australian English. So Australian English is a dialect, and there are sub-dialects there as well. There are many Australian English dialects. There are so many of them. So there's not one Australian English. There's so many kinds of Australian English, just like American English. There are many kinds of American English. There are also many kinds of British English. The final R is generally not pronounced in Australian English as well. It's the same with British English. Yeah, it's the same for the R sound, which follows the consonant sound, just like the word court. So Australians also say court as well, just like the British people. Australian English and British English have many differences as well. They have many differences. They're not the same at all. Sometimes, they sound the same, but they're not really the same. They're very, very different. Okay. Irish English sometimes sounds like British English, but from what I've heard, the final R is pronounced in Irish English. Not sure, but that's what I remember. I'll have to review that. Anyway, that's it for this second difference. I'll discuss the third difference in the third part.